And then we don't need to see our faces, do we? Okay. Happy morning to everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Just gonna start this. And if there are any questions, you guys can type them in and I will answer them as I go along. And just let me know if something goes amiss. If something about the screen or the noise or something, just let me know, because good morning. I was on a webinar the other day, or a workshop, and there was some technical issues, and people were lovely enough to tell the host that it was going on. So just let me know, okay? All right. So let's start this baby. Okay, welcome. Welcome to my first masterclass. I'm excited. I decided to call this Mastermind for Master Mindset for Bigger Business, because I have been noticing in my talks with people lately that they're really struggling with mindset. And these are people at all levels of their business, whether they're beginning, whether they've been in it for 20 years. I seem to be particularly, people are calling me right now. Now, I know it is the beginning of the school year, so people start to really pay attention to things more in the summer. But I thought that one of the things that has occurred to me is that I really get the impression that people don't really understand what mindset is. And I really wanted to get into this today because I know how important mindset is, and I have been doing this for 15 plus years. So this is something I know a lot about. Well, so for people who have never met me, my name is Megan O'Neill, and that is a nice picture of me. I don't normally look like that. And I am a mindset and a belief specialist. So what that means is that I focus mainly on beliefs. This is what my business is and has been for 15 plus years. My method that I was trained in is called core belief engineering. And really I started about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that. I started doing work on myself, which is how I got into this. I had been recommended this method that I use by my husband, Kevin. He had recommended it to me because I was struggling with a lot of things. But to be honest, I wasn't going to do any work on myself. And he kept pushing this, and I kept resisting it because I just wasn't ready to do the work. And then actually I was at work, and I had this real epiphany that a lot of my reactions in my workplace were very similar to my father's. And my father was a really interesting guy. He was trained as a lawyer, but he was an entrepreneur, and he did a lot of real estate development. And from the time that I was a little kid, my dad talked to me about business. And he was sort of unusual in the sense that he was a guy who brought his children to his meetings, and you know, he brought me to his luncheons to meet with business partners, and I would be sitting around listening to this stuff. And you know, I didn't really think I was paying attention, but a lot of it was something that I internalized, like many of the conversations that we've had with our parents. And I really was exposed to the entrepreneurial mindset at a very young age. And I was always interested in entrepreneurs because, generally speaking, entrepreneurs are people who really think outside the box. And anybody who is attracted to their own business and has a different thing that they offer often are people who are creative, they're independent, they want to run their own show. And that's also what I realized early on when I was working in my mother's traditional area, which was healthcare. I worked in the hospitals when I was in university. I realized that I wasn't going to do well in a big institution. And even the big institutions, or the traditional institutions I went to in high school, I usually bucked against anything that said tradition. And you brought up that word, and I would balk at it. I'm just going to do one thing, guys. I'm just going to get rid of this because it's annoying. So that's how I got started. And what was really interesting to me is that when I first tried this method called core belief engineering, the idea of beliefs creating your reality resonated with me. And I became more and more interested in self-development. And I got into it in the early 2000s and trained and decided to jump off the bridge and change my life. And I ended up becoming involved in core belief engineering. So that's who I am. I presently work in Ottawa. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. I came to Ottawa to actually work with relationships. I worked in a relationship center, and I decided to branch out and start my own business. And I thought it was going to be in relationships because I enjoy relationships. But when I was working with my business coach, she kept pointing out to me that I was getting really excited about entrepreneurs and working with entrepreneurs. And, that was true. I ended up being very, very interested in entrepreneurs. And every time they would come in to work with me, and it might be on relationship, they would get into their business and I would get really excited. So that gave me a clue that I was in the wrong area and that I wanted to switch and work with entrepreneurs. I think probably because they resonate a lot with me and how I grew up. My dad was a person who thought outside the box. On the other hand, using my dad as an example, he also had a lot of mindset challenges, and that ended up really impacting his business to the point where he actually lost his business. So I had two sides of the coin. I had my dad being super creative and able to create these businesses that were really successful, but then his mindset issues would get in the way and he would always end up somehow sabotaging his business, which really impacted me and really impacted my family. So that's a bit of how I got interested in working on entrepreneurs. I think a lot of times when people are interested in self-development, and I even noticed with some of the life coaches I've met, often they're trying to work on their own issues. And I think that's probably really true for me. I think there's a part of me that works with entrepreneurs because I want to solve some of the things that I grew up with. Some of the things I saw in my dad, some of the things I see in myself. So that really has been a big motivation for me. So business people, why look at mindset and beliefs? Well, I know that we are told, and this is true to a certain extent, that we need to invest in all these different systems. We need to work with a business coach, which I am really keen on working and have and do work with a business coach. But if you sat down and talked to business coaches, or if you really looked at entrepreneurs who work with people who are trying to grow their business and create their business, they will tell you that it's great to have business strategies and they are necessary, but mindset is 80% of what makes you successful. And you'll see as I'm going along why that is. But how I see it is that, having worked, for example, with a coach or having, bought programs, often people don't implement what they need to do in order to grow their business because of mindset blocks. And I'm going to show you some of those mindset blocks. So big reoccurring beliefs are established in our childhood and are often inherited, surprise, surprise, from our parents, from society, from friends, and even pop culture. I can't tell you how many, when I was working with relationships, I can't tell you how many people would compare their relationships to some fictitious romantic comedy. We inherit these beliefs because we're constantly absorbing beliefs, but we absorb our big beliefs when we're, really quite young. I would say from 0 to teens, when we're born, from the time that we're born until I think teens, and that's what my work tells me. But you know what? Science is starting to show us that the age of 7, that really some of the big developmental, our developmental is really done by the time that we're 7, which is something that I was always told when I was growing up. So, our parents are our authority, And they are the people who really influence how we think about things. Of course, our friends do, but really our parents and our society are the primary people that affect us. So I'm just going to go to the next one. So this is one of my favorite things that I always say to people. Beliefs create the lens in which we see the world. So basically imagine that your beliefs are the lens in which you see. So one of the examples that I've used over the years is that I have an uncle who thinks everybody rips him off, and he gets ripped off all the time. I don't believe the same thing. I trust people, and I believe that people are basically generous and honest. And I have lost my wallet, honestly, at least 10 times and had it sent back to me in the mail. People phone me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have had people help me. So you see, there's two different lenses in which we see the world. And that's really what beliefs are. Beliefs are what inform us. Our beliefs are before how we feel. So if I believe that that person's going to hurt me, I'm going to get defensive. So beliefs are the most important thing that we need to be aware of in terms of creating our reality. So I'm just going to check in with you guys and see if anybody has any questions so far. Any questions, my friends? Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. So beliefs are a tricky thing, though. Beliefs are often feel very natural to us. I often describe old beliefs that we have about ourselves that have been around for a long time and maybe established in our childhood. Like, for example, my mom would say to me, you know what, Megan, you're the easy one. You're the one that's the most pliable child. You're the most, you're the happiest out of my 3 kids. And you know what? I was. But then my mother told me that. So that was a big belief about myself, that I was the happy kid, that I was the easy kid. You know, to my sister, she told my sister, and maybe not directly, but indirectly, that she was the difficult one. And my sister ended up believing that a lot about herself. So we really do create these beliefs about ourselves at a young age, and then we wear them like an old sweater. I compare our beliefs to a comfy old sweater that we've been wearing for a long time, and we really feel like it's a part of our identity. So beliefs are really, really tricky to see sometimes, which is why I want to talk to you guys about it today, because beliefs are essentially what mindset is. Mindset's the word that you guys keep hearing if you're entrepreneurs. And we've actually had this word for a very long time. But mindset really is just our system of beliefs. You know, what is our money mindset, for example? You hear that a lot. Or what is your mindset toward this? Really what they're saying is, what are your beliefs on this subject? So what are our beliefs on these subjects? So, sorry. So I'm really love any sort of belief quote, but I really like this one. Well, because I also love learning about the Roosevelts. So believe and you're halfway there. This is so true. It's so true that what you believe creates your reality. You can see it in everything that you do, but you might not be aware of it. So I'm going to talk to you about 5 common mindset blocks that I am seeing an awful lot, almost all the time when I'm working with people. And I'm sure that you're probably familiar with these mindset blocks. But if you aren't, if you guys could just grab a piece of paper, or if you have anything, even your phone in front of you, if something comes up while I'm talking about this, don't ignore it, write it down. Because something might occur to you as we're talking about this, okay? So, imposter syndrome, visibility, self-worth, money, and sales. Now, I could talk about each of these for an hour in itself, or maybe all day, you know, in the case of money. But these are the biggies. These are the things that really block people from a bigger business. So imposter syndrome. Um, I'm sure that you have heard this term, but if you don't know what if you don't know what it is, the imposter syndrome, this is it. I feel like a fraud and that I'm going to be found out. So it's often what people are, and I will tell you that I'm going to direct this at women because most of the people who signed up for this are women. So I'm sorry if there's any men out there and I'm talking about women, but imposter syndrome is something that women are usually the ones to suffer from. And there is a lot of research on women and imposter syndrome. And what's really interesting is that I have predominantly worked with women over the years. And recently I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurial women. And this is one of the mindset blocks that they struggle with the most. And what's really interesting about imposter syndrome is that the women that are coming to me and talking to me about this are usually women who are incredibly, incredibly accomplished in their area. And they might have been working in the area for years and years and years. And yet it's really interesting. They still feel like they need to do one more step in order to be seen as valid or, as credible. And this is what I see a lot. What's interesting about some women entrepreneurs is that what they do is they often maybe quit the institution that they're working at and go on and go out for themselves and become a contract and create their own company. And they've been doing this for like 20 years, but they're still worried about being found out. They're still worried that when they present themselves, that somehow they're not legitimate. And I don't know if any of you can relate, but this is here it is. I have years of experience, but I still feel hesitant to call myself an expert. And one woman in particular that I worked with had, I think she had at least 3 degrees. And one of the degrees at least was from an Ivy League. And she still felt that she needed to take courses in order for her to be legitimate as a coach. And in her area of expertise, she had years, she was a money coach. She had years and years and years of experience in the financial industry. And yet she still had a lot of challenge around calling her an expert or presenting herself as an expert. Or what we're going to talk about later, which is she was challenged to actually ask for a fee to talk to her. And she was seriously accomplished. So there's this sort of extreme, but there are a lot of people who are feeling this way. So yes, the end result of the imposter syndrome is you don't charge what you should because you don't feel you're qualified enough or experienced enough. So this is what this money coach did, which was really interesting because she had so much knowledge. She had more knowledge than probably most of the money coaches out there. So here's what I hear from my clients. I have serious imposter syndrome. Every time someone asks a question, even when I know the answer, I don't answer because I am terrified someone will jump in and contradict me, thereby letting everyone know that I know absolutely nothing. So there's a perfect example of an imposter syndrome. And so what I see happening is that people are keeping themselves small. This is spilling into many, many different areas, but just to summarize it, people are keeping themselves small. They're not putting themselves out there because they are fearful that they're not qualified enough, they don't have enough experience, they don't have enough recognition. And where I see a lot of my clients is that they feel that they continuously have to take courses, do some sort of accreditation, when in reality they have tons of knowledge and they should be actually in business helping people with what they already know. So here we go. Here's how it plays out in your business. Here's how you see it. You don't do videos or Facebook Lives because you're afraid to put yourself out there on the screen. You are totally behind on your blogs or your newsletters. So this is how it plays out. This is how you're seeing that people are not putting it into action. when they have imposter syndrome, but also, as you can see, visibility, because all of these are spilling into each other. So what is visibility? Visibility is this: not doing your videos, not doing your Facebook lives, coming up with excuses, even in terms of feeling like you have to be extremely polished and professional before you can do it. This is some of the excuses that I hear, instead of understanding that you don't need to be. If any of you have a chance, my first video is actually on this subject, which is getting out of your comfort zone. That was the title of the first video that I ever did. And I just did it. And I put it out there for everybody, my high school friends, my university friends, everyone to see, because I needed to actually be pushed that much. Because visibility is really the key to building your business. People have to get to know you. They have to learn how to trust you. And Facebook Lives, for example, or videos, or even, podcasts or whatever it is, writing your blogs, if you're more comfortable writing, this is the way to do it. And yet there's a lot of people that find a lot of excuses to not be visible. I think it's actually one of the biggest things that I see. So one of the ways in which I heard one of my friends talking about it was, you hate networking events because you hate talking about what you do for fear of sounding stupid. So, this is one of those, women's business network events, or any of those networking things that you go to, even the meetups. People avoid those like the plague. They're afraid to really go in there and talk to people and meet people, because they feel really uncomfortable, and some of their imposter syndrome might come out, or their visibility. And I think that a lot of people, when they have to do networking events and they have to talk about themselves and they have to tell what they do, that they feel really uncomfortable. And there's a lot of beliefs behind that. It's not just imposter syndrome. It's also the idea that it's immodest to talk about what you do, that somehow it might sound like you're bragging or you're full of yourself. And of course, what that does is it disconnects you from really making connections. You don't get to meet people and really show yourself. And of course, what women are particularly, oh gosh, I just wish we didn't do this. We're so concerned about making a mistake. And I want to tell you that part of the reason that I believe that we are so concerned about making a mistake is because we were told as little girls particularly that it's not acceptable to make mistakes. And I will be an honest mom here. I have done this with my kids. And I think that often, because we are taught as females that we need to please more, that making a mistake is something that females feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not pleasing people if I make a mistake. I'm not saying that men don't have this. They do as well, because they're also criticized for making mistakes. But, really, I think we all know as adults that mistakes are how we learn. And we say this to our kids too, when we're actually having conscious moment. We'll say, well, you know what? You learn from your mistakes. And it really is true. And it is particularly true in your business. You're going to make mistakes. And, sometimes those mistakes are going to be very, very uncomfortable, and they're going to be emotional. But they're also going to be profoundly informative. What are you not going to do next time? What are you going to do next time? So, visibility. My huge issue is watching myself on camera. I'm not comfortable with the way I look. I hate seeing myself on video, hearing my voice. I will watch a video and criticize myself. Also, the feeling of being, there's a typo, of being too salesy is a thing as well. I have issues with that. So being salesy is one of those things I also hear a lot about. I'm just going to get rid of this. Sorry, guys. So watching myself on camera, that can also prevent people from putting themselves on camera, because they might be afraid of something around their looks, maybe weight gain, Or with me, one day I had a massive zit. I mean, it was just like massive. And I had scheduled a Facebook Live, questions and answers. And you know what? I made myself do it anyway, because it wasn't exactly something I enjoyed looking at. But once again, I wanted to push myself through it, because these are the type of blocks that you have that are going to sidetrack you from really connecting with people. And I think most people are in business, anyway, those who are service-based, are in business or not, if you have products, because we want to connect with people. We want to have a relationship. And salesy. This is salesy. Oh gosh, that word salesy. How many times have I heard it? People are really concerned about being salesy. I'm going to talk about sales in a minute, but a lot of this, most of this has to do with our self-worth. It has to do with the fact that we are taught in many ways that we're not valuable. And that goes back to that criticism that I was talking about earlier from our childhood, where we're criticized if we don't do things well. And I am really familiar with this in my family, because really the way in which my mother parented, and my dad too, but more so my mom, was through criticism. And the philosophy, the belief behind it was that if I criticize, then she will remember, and that will keep her safe. She won't make the same mistakes, because she'll be safe in the world if she doesn't make mistakes. And that was really the philosophy behind criticism. But as children, we don't understand that that's the philosophy, and we really believe that we're not good enough. And we start to really internalize those messages, even though we as parents don't mean to do that to our kids. Of course, I'm a mother. I've done many things that my parents have done. And one of the things that I should have mentioned at the beginning was that we are operating most of the time on automatic pilot. We're operating from our subconscious, and that's where we're holding a lot of these beliefs that I'm talking about, these mindsets. So, for example, I think one of the classic things that I see as a mindset block with a lot of the business owners and entrepreneurs that I work with is that they say, you know what, I don't know. I mean, I feel like anybody could do what I do. Why would people choose me? Why would they pay me? These are a lot of the beliefs that are going on in people's minds, and they may not even have spoken them. They do with me because they're interested in getting to the bottom of it. But I think what's really interesting is, even if you're coming into a business and you're brand new in what you're doing, you're bringing in life experiences, you're bringing in experiences from previous work, and there's only you. You are the only person that knows these things, that makes our experiences unique. I have been doing this for a long time, and I have a training where I've used it for many, many years. But I really believe that my life experiences are actually what has helped me the most. My observations as a human being has really probably helped me the most. So where self-worth comes in and really affects people as well is creating boundaries with their clients. So, having listened to, say, for example, people who are graphic designers or anyone who's a website designer knows that even if you have a contract, which of course you should have a contract, people still, because it's so subjective, I think creative things like websites and logos and all that stuff, that people might come back to you, and they might come back, and if you don't have the boundaries, then your quote that you gave them is going to evaporate, and you're going to end up donating hours, and it's going to end up costing you money. And this is where boundaries are really important. You really have to understand how valuable you are, and how valuable your time is, and how valuable your knowledge is, or you might end up giving away a lot of your time, and maybe even giving up your product. I mean, I've heard so many people do this, and I feel like women in particular are more apt to give away because they don't want to have conflict, because they haven't created boundaries, because they're afraid to create boundaries. and it loops around to fear of conflict if they have boundaries. So this is where I want you to really think about your boundaries and really understand that your self-worth and your value is something that is the most important thing about mindset, period, about being in business. You need to understand this. This is the most important thing. What do I hear from my clients? I have to say lack of confidence. I'm not happy with how I look. I'm terribly shy. And I guess just overall not a feeling like I'm enough, not experienced enough, not thin enough, nothing new to contribute. Now, this is when people are writing this and they're telling me this, and they're being honest. And I really appreciate that. But I think every single one of us has some form of this, that we are challenged with our confidence and our self-worth. And that's something that we need to look at. And we definitely need to look at it when we are in business for ourselves, because there's no hiding behind anything else. You are your business, and you need your confidence for things like challenging clients, for time boundaries. It is imperative. So money blocks, one of my favorite things to talk about. And honestly, I could have spent the whole time talking about this. Money is a really complicated subject, and money beliefs are created at a really young age. You inherit them from your parents mostly, and often money beliefs that we inherit from our parents are outdated, and they are not good money beliefs. I know, and I've told the story to many, many people, that I grew up listening to my grandparents talk about the Depression, and they talked about how hard it was and money was a struggle. And as a result of their experiences, they end up passing a lot of my mom's to my mother, this real scarcity mentality, that there isn't enough money, that you should always be fearful that there's not going to be enough, and you should hold on to it. You should hold on to it with like a fist. And so my mother, as a result, passed that along to me, the fear of losing your money. And ultimately, my parents did lose their money. So I had my own baggage to deal with. And I'll tell you that part of my real dive into mindset and my own mindset was when I realized that I was really struggling with scarcity, and that I was really reacting and really over the top reacting to money situations. And so I knew that I needed to really start working on money mindset. And I would recommend to anybody who is listening to this call to work on mindset in this area. Signs of money blocks, because you might recognize some of the stuff that you see here. You struggle with pricing. I can't tell you how many boards that I have read where people are asking people what they should charge. And I understand that there's often a fee in people's, that there's a standard fee, but I think that you need to be really confident in what you yourself are asking for, instead of asking what other people want. And I think it's because, I'll be honest, I don't think that we step into our own power around pricing. Pricing does reflect also what you believe about your product and about your service. You give away a lot for free. Now, when you're first beginning your business, it does make sense that you are going to give some things away for free. I give some things away for free, but I do it from a place of I really want to help. And I think that you really need to check in with yourself about when you are giving things away for free, or if you are giving away your time a lot. You really need to check in with yourself and ask yourself, what's the belief behind this? For example, I give away some free, people are going to call me, and usually the only people who call me are really interested in working with me. And I spend a good chunk of time really determining whether or not we are a fit and what they want to work on. So that's well worth it for both of us. But I know that I have seen, and actually even my husband, who does side jobs, has given away a lot of his time for free because he doesn't want to be seen as a bad guy. So I want you to really start to look at the beliefs behind that. You cringe when you have money conversations with clients or friends. You barter for services or products instead of paying real money. I used to do this and it never worked out. Bartering never works out. There's always one person who doesn't get what they should get. So my recommendation is actually to get away from bartering. I think that it's something that devalues what you do and the other person does. That's my opinion. Are you cringing when you're having conversations? This is what started me really understanding I needed to work on my money mindset, because I didn't invest in services or products because I was worried about the responsibility of paying. So that would, some people won't, for example, they'll try and do everything themselves and not hire a virtual assistant because they're afraid of the monthly bill. You don't feel comfortable spending money on yourself. Okay, so my classic example is that I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I had like maternity underwear still, like, I don't know how many years later. Like, I hadn't spent any money on underwear. I mean, honestly, it was so bad. So if you're looking at, if you find yourself always making excuses to not spend money on yourself, and you're, I have to buy the kids this, or the family needs this. If you hear that coming into your conversation a lot, I want you to really check into that, because spending money on yourself doesn't mean that you have to go to Tiffany's. It could be just that you go and maybe get a massage every once in a while, or you go out for coffee and buy yourself a really good cup of coffee. For me the other day, it was buying myself some good earphones after suffering for a long time with crummy earphones. I'm just going to check back in to see if there's anybody who has any questions. Nope. Okay, guys, if you do, I will answer them. Okay. So here we go. I struggle because I haw and I hum when people ask the price, and I always feel I should offer someone a deal, especially if I know them. How many people can relate to this? This is so common. So it's funny how we take on other people's money stuff. We take on their money baggage. I believe, so this is one of the most common beliefs in this area, which is people assume that people can't afford your services. I heard it the other day. They assume that the person can't afford them. So what you need to do is you need to stop, and you need to understand that you actually are making a decision, for the person, and you're projecting your money beliefs onto other people. So I want you to really check in on that. For me, it's believing that people will want to pay for what I offer. I am passionate. And it's not that I lack the skills or experience, but I don't think I promote myself as much because discussing money is uncomfortable. Well, I want you to ask yourself, if you're feeling like money is uncomfortable to discuss, what is it about money that makes it uncomfortable? What is it? What do you believe? So digging down deeper on those beliefs, but what do you believe that makes it uncomfortable? Yeah. So true. Heidi says, so true. Even products, not just a service. That's true. People make the assumption, oh, they can't afford, this product. This is going to be too much for them. And what you're doing is you're limiting the person from buying your product, and you're making assumptions. Number one, we're making assumptions. And I just want to tell you that when I worked in relationships, one of the things that I was correcting couples on is that one of the biggest problems that I felt that people had in their relationship was that they made assumptions about what their partners thought. And that's the same in this relationship. People make assumptions. And most of the time, our assumptions are not correct. So discussing money is uncomfortable. And I think there's a cultural element to this. And I know that Anita actually is a Scandinavian. And I think Scandinavians are similar to Canadians, where there's some huge, huge beliefs around talking about money as if it's unseemly, it's undignified, it's tacky. I think there's really old beliefs about that. And I think that those are beliefs that we need to challenge 150%. Any of the cultural beliefs that we have around money. Now, guys, I'm going to go into next month, and I'm going to talk a lot more about money because October is my money month. But anyway, poor mindset. What's the end result of this? Poor money mindset will stop your business from growing 150%. And I dove into money mindset about 2 or 3 years ago because I had this epiphany that this was one of my biggest blocks. And I wasn't growing my business on any level and not modernizing it. I was still working like a person, I was still doing print ads. Like nobody does print ads because I didn't know enough to invest in some social media education. I didn't even know what a business coach was. I certainly didn't know what a VA was, or any of the things that I now have in my life that make my business so much easier, because I had a poor money mindset. So I started to really work and look at my beliefs around money. And I discovered a whole heck of a lot. And I think that you're going to continue to discover blocking money beliefs, because I think it happens at every level. I think everything happens at every level. So visibility, imposter syndrome, because say you get to really big in your city, and then you're going to go national, and then you think, oh, wow, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to get bigger. And so there's an expression that I learned from another entrepreneur, which was new devil, new level. So for each new level that you go to in your business, there's a new devil, and the devil has a little voice that it's saying to you. So it will lead to burnout. I guarantee that if you try and do everything yourself, if you try to take every course to learn every single thing about graphic design or Facebook ads or whatever it is, you will burn out and you will feel overwhelmed. This is why outsourcing is a girl's best friend or an entrepreneur's best friend. It is definitely something I want you guys to consider. And it doesn't have to be $1 million. What I hear from my clients, I struggle because of this, we already looked at that. Sorry, guys. You undervalue your services and don't get paid for what you should. I hate this. I get so upset when I see this, because I really have, because I've done work on my money mindset, this is one of my pet peeves. I hate seeing people who undervalue their services or they don't promote their products because of their money beliefs. This is something that the next one, you attract the worst clients. They're cheap and difficult. This is the number one sign that you have a money mindset issue, is when you send the energy out into the world that say, hey, crappy clients, cheap and difficult ones who expect me to give them the farm. Those are a sign you need to work on your money mindset. And because I have gone through this, because I have accepted people who are not going to be good fit for me, who do not align with who I am, I've had to go through this in the worst way, and I want to deter people from it. And the reason why I attracted those clients was on 2 levels. I sent that energy out into the world, but I also subconsciously didn't listen. I subconsciously had this little voice saying, oh my gosh, you have to take this client because you have to pay bills. And I'd go through this whole money worry. And then I'd be like, oh gosh, and I would take them and then I would regret it. And what happened is that I really didn't listen to or didn't look at the red flags that these clients, and you can usually tell, and especially if you have a form, if you have a website and you have a form that really asks questions about why a person is coming to work with you, you can pretty well tell within either getting the form and receiving it in your email, or if you're on the phone, you know within a certain length of time whether or not someone is going to be a fit for you. But you need to also get clear on what you're willing to accept. Are you willing to work with people who are crummy because you're fearful that you can't pay your bills? This is something I hear a lot about. You over-deliver to your clients because you're afraid they'll leave you for someone else. That's something, once again, that people go through. I almost think it's a rite of passage. You have a scarcity mentality. You're afraid to outsource in case you can't keep up your client flow. So these are all very typical mindset blocks that people experience as they run their business. And my reason for doing all of these and putting all these up on the sheets here is that I want people to get really, really clear on what mindset blocks are, because they're tricky. And I just want to see, sorry. Oops, here we go. Sorry. Yes, my pricing of my illustrations today, and it felt horrible. I never thought people would want to buy the originals. It's the same here. Yes, my Scandinavian friend. Yes, you're Norwegian. She's Norwegian. That's why I think there's a similarity between our cultures. And also, I know Anita, she is an artist. She's a creative. And often creatives, I personally find that creatives were told often at a young age that their creativity would never allow them to make a good living. Starving artist comes to mind. And so they are inundated with beliefs that their creativity is, it's not valuable. Nobody's going to think it's valuable. Nobody's going to pay for it. So they struggle with money, and they often give away their creations for free. So why am I talking about this? Because I want you to believe and understand that money is the byproduct of my happiness and what I am doing. Money is simply a byproduct. You know, it's something that we need. It's something that we need and that makes our life better. And money should be the byproduct of doing what you want. My ideal would be that everybody is paid what makes them feel good, and it just is a flow, and it's an afterthought, and that their work is at the forefront, the work that they enjoy. Sales blocks. So I know that people who are in service industries or selling products, this is one of their biggest challenges, sales. And I have, they have them on the phone, they seem interested, but you just don't want to tell what you offer. And I know because I've been through this and I really understand it. And once again, it goes into beliefs about being pushy, being salesy, being a used car salesman. People worry about that. But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people ultimately in what we do. And telling people what they need is also part of it. If someone has a lot of blocks that are really deep seated and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, then they're going to have to work with me on a longer, contingency plan here. They're going to have to, they're going to have to work with me in a longer fashion. When I first signed up to work with my coach, she was struggling a bit with sales, and I said to her, I don't really know what I need, and which was the truth. I had no idea, because I was so new to the world of business coaches and building my business that I really had no idea what I needed in order to be successful and to really get to the level that I want to. And a good business coach will actually tell you, listen, you need to do 6 months with me. You might now have to do 9 months with me. That is the truth. They're not doing it because they're trying to take advantage of you. They're telling you because they understand from their expertise that this is what you need in order to make your business bigger. So sales blocks can actually be a disservice to your clients, or they can be a disservice to the people that you are trying to help. So I see these blocks in myself. What can I do? Here is the magic question. I have been working with people for an awful long time. I've been looking at beliefs for at least 15 years, if not longer. I can't even remember now when I started. And I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I know will help you. And the first thing that you can start to do is become really, really aware of your mindset. That's why I gave you all those examples. And if, I'm going to send a replay out to everybody so you can review and see what ones you relate to. And as you're sort of relating to some of the, maybe the imposter syndrome, or you're struggling with making your sale, because ultimately, you're in business for a reason, and you have a bigger intent in why you are in business. And you can't fulfill that bigger purpose if you have these mindset blocks. You can't be the best that you can be. You can't be comfortable, happy, calm, have a flow if these mindset blocks are dogging you. So what beliefs are coming up when you think about making the call? So for example, if you have a list of potential clients and you are checking in with those clients and you are putting it off, because I did not talk about procrastination, but procrastination is something that I could once again spend another day on, if not more. What beliefs are underneath the procrastination? Does it have anything to do with your worth? Does it have anything to do with your value? I want you to start to really dig a bit deeper. And how I ultimately make note of my own mindset blocks, because they can be really tricky to see, is I actually have a little pink journal that I keep with me in my purse, or when I'm walking and I'm out and I'm listening to a podcast or I'm thinking, I actually put it on my phone under my notes, and I keep track of it. And I make note of what areas feel the most difficult. So where do you feel it? Mindset is not intellectual. The way that you understand you have mindset blocks is there's a visceral reaction to it. It doesn't feel good. It often feels like an area that you feel like you're a kid in. Like you feel like you're going back to junior high. So for example, if you were going to a networking event and you find yourself holding back because you're afraid of what people will think about you, then most likely that relates to an earlier time in your life. That's often where our big beliefs come from. Number 2, this is how you can positively start to build a better mindset. And that's to start, I'm saying women here, so I apologize to my men. Start to study women who you feel are successful in business. You don't have to know these people. But I want you to study what their beliefs are. What do they believe? How do they react to things? Read up on them. One of my heroes is Oprah, and I have studied what she said about money and gaining fame. What her purpose is. I've really listened to her because I find her so inspiring. But I also have had mentors in my life who I talk to them. So go out with an entrepreneur that's maybe one level ahead of you. Ask them if you can talk to them. Maybe take one of their courses if they're offering a course. Usually there's some component of mindset in it. But talk to them and find out, what do they believe? How did they deal with some of their mindset struggles? Because you can learn so much from studying people who have healthy beliefs. What I want to really deter you from doing is talking to people who don't have good mindset beliefs. So for example, I would talk to my mother at the beginning of my business, and my mother worked in the same hospital for like 45 years. I kid you not. She was a nurse, and she had never she was the worst example of someone who could have been an entrepreneur. She just had money mindset, and she just thought it was tacky to talk about money or sales. She was like a very traditional person and a very, very much an employee. And I used to talk to her about how I felt in the beginning of my business, and she would not help me. She'd make it worse. She'd say, why don't you just go get a job then? And she'd sort of, don't talk to people who negate the fact that you are an entrepreneur or that you are self-employed. And this includes spouses. If your spouse is normal, and mine is normal, meaning that they work in the traditional world, they're maybe not the best people to talk to. It's better to get a posse of entrepreneurs, maybe join a mastermind, create your own mastermind. I have a Facebook board where we talk about mindset, and it's all entrepreneurs or self-employed people. And talk to people who are going to encourage you and are going to help you through some of the emotional strain of being an entrepreneur and have better beliefs. So yes, this is probably the most important thing. Sit down and get really clear on what success would ideally look like for you. I have sat down with many entrepreneurs, and we've talked about success. And what we found is that there's a lot of beliefs, a lot of negative beliefs they have around success. I'm going to have to work harder. I'm going to have less time for my kids and my husband. I'm going to get exhausted. I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm going to have too much responsibility. I'm going to have to manage people, and I hate managing people. So when you actually dig down deeper on success, we all think we want to have success, but sometimes there's some niggling hidden beliefs that actually are behind not really necessarily all of you want success. So I want you guys to really sit down and write out or talk out what success would look like for you. Because there's also a lot of practical solutions to the fears that people have around success. They have there's a lot of practical solutions like outsourcing. I was talking about this the other day to one of my friends who is an entrepreneur who was feeling overwhelmed about social media. And I think social media can feel like a lot of work to a lot of people. And you know what? That's something that you can outsource. You can sit down and, maybe hire a social media manager or a VA and really outline what it is that you want to do that month. And then they'll write it up, they'll post it, they'll do all the different things, Instagram, whatever. There's a lot of practical solutions for this. But you often don't get to those practical solutions because your mindset gets in the way. It really does. It gets in the way of really seeing solutions. So one of the things that I've often talked about too with mindset is that negative beliefs, they create fears, and fears produce cortisol. Cortisol goes, and what cortisol does, and we all know cortisol because that's what happens, that's what's secreted, that's the chemical that comes when you are in fear. And what happens when they have looked at the influence on the brain is that cortisol will literally stop areas of your brain that are responsible for creative thinking. So you're not going to have creative solutions if you're living in fear. You will continue to feel like you are on the gerbil on the mouse wheel, the mouse wheel on the mouse wheel, the mouse on the mouse wheel. So I want you to think about that. Write down what makes you good at what you do. I did this with a client the other day. We sat down and we went through exactly what makes her good at what she does, why people would want to work with her, and her experience, what she believes about what she does, what her skill set is. She had years and years of experience, but unfortunately her mindset was getting in her way and all of her fears were coming up because her business had changed. And so all this new things were introduced, and that made her feel a lot of self-doubt. But in reality, she was extremely experienced, completely competent, and actually had a lot of confidence. So we sat down and we really got clear on the opposite side of her mind to the worry. And she was, confident at what she did, et cetera, et cetera. And I also want you to start to imagine that you're talking to your ideal client. And my business coach would say, okay, Megan, create an avatar of who your client is. And I want you to tell them why you would work with them, why they should work with you or buy your product. I mean, I could go on for a half an hour about why I think people should work with me, because I sat down and got really clear. And when you get clear on who you want to work with, who your ideal client is, then you're going to be speaking to them. And you're going to start to really communicate in a more effective way if you can do that. And then post it beside your desk so that when you get on the phone with that potential client or you're out at that networking, keep it in your wallet. Look at it before you go into the networking event. But I want you to really, really, really focus on doing this task. Please challenge yourself. Yes, my friends, my first video, which took me, I think, a year to do because I kept hawing and humming about it, was called Getting Out of Your Comfort Zone. And doing that changed my life, doing that video. And I basically didn't have any frills on the video. I got out of this whole mentality that it had to be perfect and that I had to look like I had just come out of the salon and, that everything was great. I just did it. And I put it up on Facebook for everybody to see because I wanted to break through that fear. And I did it, and I had so many people come on and cheer me on and make me, cheer me on and say, good for you. And you know what? It was good for me. I gained confidence from doing that. And it also gives you the opportunity, if you challenge yourself, to see what fears are still coming up. What is holding you back from doing what you need to do? Whether it's Facebook Lives, whether it's posts, whether it's following up on a potential lead. What is it that's holding you back? What are your beliefs around doing the action? So this goes right back to what I started out, which is, why do we need to pay attention to mindset? Well, it directly affects your actions. And you might not even realize how much it affects your actions, which is why I wanted you guys to see this today. So do the deeper work and heal your story about yourself. I've spent most of the last 15 years working with people on their story about themselves. And underneath the story, what created the story was usually events in their lives. And it doesn't have to be dramatic events. It could be that you heard a story from your parents about their childhood, and you've taken that story on as part of your identity. And, or, you know, something happened to you. Maybe, you know, something I have worked with a lot is that perhaps, you know, at a younger time in your life, you were ostracized by girls in your class, and that deeply affected you. And I know that because my daughter is 13, and I know how hard this age is. And often this is an age where people create beliefs about other people and other women. And so they have a big story around being hurt, around people making fun of you. And that story continues to loop around in your subconscious. And what it does is it keeps popping up every time you go to meet someone at a networking event, or you create conflict with other people, which is what happened with me. I started to have a lot of conflict with the men at my work. And that went directly back to my, this is when I first got into core belief. This went directly back to my dad. And I started to realize that I was replaying the same things my dad had done, and I needed to do the deeper work. And I finally pushed myself to do it. And we all have deeper work to do in order to heal ourselves. And that's the foundation of any mindset work. It's really about going deeper and healing the story that you have about whatever is holding you back. Why is it important? Why am I banging on about women in particular? Because I'm so ambitious for women to step into their financial power in particular. There's been a lot of shifts this year in the world. And I think that if women start to really step into their power, which is stepping into their financial power, I really believe that we can change the world, that we can make it a better place. You know, actually, there was a fellow in my Facebook group who was talking about valuing his services. And he was talking about the more money that he makes, the more that he has to put into the local community, which is so true. The more money that you're making, the more that you can contribute to other female-run businesses. We can go outside of our countries and start to support women in developing worlds and help them to make money, because that ultimately, whenever they've done any studies, they know that the world, that when women in developing countries start to make more money, that they invest it in education, in healthcare, and things that are important to us. So this is really, you're seeing my beliefs here. A belief that if women make money, the world will be a better place. A recent study by Women's Philanthropy Institute at the university found that women are as much as 40% more likely to donate than men. So women are bigger contributors to charity than men. So I used Oprah because, of course, Oprah opened up that school for girls in South Africa, and I've always loved that. I feel like here, the more money, we create more power, and then we have that feminine energy that, you know, that really balances out a lot of the male energy that we have seen in business. And I just want to say also that thank God we have men. They can teach us a lot about mindset. We should study them, but we also have something to offer. So, you know, if you want to get some more help, and I know that maybe some of this has triggered people, then I offer a free 45-minute clarity call. And I'm actually going to be starting I did this last spring. I had an online virtual mindset group where entrepreneurial, in this case it was women, we went through some of the topics and dove deep on them and really worked at a deeper level over an 8-week period. And we had a fantastic group. So if anybody is interested in getting more support and also connecting with other female entrepreneurs. I would love to talk to you about that too. So I'm just going to see if anybody have any questions. Anybody have any questions? Because I would love to hear any questions about mindset. If there's anything that you're feeling like you have experienced or you want to ask a question on, I would love to hear about it. One of the things that you'll notice about things coming up is that they feel uncomfortable. When you were hearing things and they were feeling really uncomfortable, that is a good sign. That is your internal self telling you that you need to pay attention to something. And often when you have really difficult situations in your business happen, like the crummy client, the diva client, or the person who doesn't pay, for example. I think many people have experienced that, where for some reason, the payment didn't come through from the person. That is a flashlight that you need to look at it deeper. You need to figure out where you are participating in this. So I hope that this helped you guys. I'm just looking to see if there are anything here. Oh, we do. Yeah, sorry. I'm having trouble finding the chat box here. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, well, Danny, you know what? A lot of people have a lot of blocks, but that's not a bad thing. It's just kind of natural, to be honest. I feel like this is a rite of passage when you're an entrepreneur. I feel like it is a rite of passage. I went through a lot of my own blocks, and what's really interesting is I was trained in seeing beliefs, but I wasn't trained to see the entrepreneurial mindset blocks. It took me a lot of hard lessons and a lot of emotional turmoil in many ways to start to see where I was struggling and how I needed to change it. And I really feel like there is a big part of me that wants to help people avoid that. I know that people can't totally avoid that, but I would like to help them avoid some of the lonely and sort of emotional experiences I went through, because I didn't have anybody to really talk to about it. They didn't have online communities when I started. And I made a lot of bad decisions in terms of not spending money or spending money in the wrong places. And I struggled a lot. So I've been through it. I understand how hard this can be, but I also want to tell you that as soon as you become conscious of what's going on within you, it starts to switch. It starts to change. And there's lots of different ways that you can change it, but you have to actually be aware that it's happening before you can change it. You're in Ottawa. Yep. Would be called for. Well, you know what? We will. I do appreciate the person over. Okay. Well, you know what, Danny? Let's talk about that. Send me an email. One of the things I want you guys also to think about is I want you guys to think about getting off this and writing down some of the things that popped up and starting to research some good beliefs. One of the things that I also would, if there's anybody who, I think I'm missing one slide here. Maybe, here we go. Sorry guys, one slide that I'm missing, which if you want to keep the conversation going and you want to dive into to some of the mindset blocks in a deeper fashion, I also have a Facebook group which is called Core Beliefs for Business with Megan O'Neill, and I created that group because I saw a need for a mindset Facebook group that really concentrated on mindset, that a place where people could talk about the emotional part of being an entrepreneur, because I think it's really the toughest part of it. It's the most important part of being an entrepreneur, in my opinion. And I think that most Facebook boards really talk about the practical part because people are too embarrassed to talk about the mindset stuff. They're embarrassed to admit that they have these fears. And so they ask questions about, does anyone have someone who can do my logo? Does anybody know the best software for this accounting problem? And you know what? That stuff is amazing, and I love to be a part of those boards. But I also know that one of the most important ways in which you succeed is by being absolutely confident and sure that you can do it. So I wanted to help people to start to work through some of the emotional issues and some of the mindset blocks that people experience. So if you guys are interested, let me just put this up again. It's you can go and read and connect with me at meganoneil.ca, because I am in Canada, or you can go to Facebook groups. It's Core Beliefs for Business, and it's a private group. And it's an area where you guys can dive deeper into some of the things that you have noticed within yourself. So just if anybody has any more questions, let me know, or you can come to Core Beliefs for Business, or you can contact me either on Facebook, Megan O'Neill, Core Belief Engineering, or you can send me an email and connect with me that way. And what we can do is start to really dive into some deeper into what's going on with you. I love helping people, and I love to help them to start to see where they're getting in their own way so they can get out of it. Okay? So let's connect. I hope you guys, thanks so much everybody for coming. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for joining me. Okay? Bye-bye, everybody. Bye, guys.